So I welcome everyone and thank Ryan for agreeing to be our presenter this month. Ryan is the Vice President for Program Development and Delivery of the First Tee program. And I think probably a few of us probably know about the First Tee program. I remember hearing about it a few years back. My brother was an avid golfer and kind of told me about this, and he knew I was involved in coaching education, and I looked into it, and I thought it was a really cool way of introducing golf to people. In, at least from a personal standpoint, the times I've tried golf, I find it to be very frustrating, and I know experienced golfers still find it that way. And I thought the approach of that First Tee has taken kind of reduces that and hopefully gets people involved in the sport. Ryan is a graduate from the University of Illinois, and so I am going to now turn this over to Ryan in the always smooth transitions that we have here. So Ryan, I'm switching screens to you.
Okay.
And the floor is yours. Take it away.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Sam. Really appreciate, one, the invite to participate in this group. So I've been able to participate in a couple of the webinars, and so just thank you for the ability to be involved. And then secondly, for the opportunity today to share more about the First Tee. So my name is Ryan Graff. I'm the Vice President of Program Development and Delivery at the First Tee. The First Tee headquarters are based in St. Augustine, Florida, at the World Golf Village, where also the World Golf Hall of Fame is based out of. I've been involved with the First Tee for going on 18 years now. I've had various levels of involvement, from working on a program committee in Phoenix when the First Tee was being formulated there, a chapter there, which I'll explain more about, as well as then running a chapter in Illinois in my hometown, and now at the headquarters based in St. Augustine, Florida. The objectives for today: one, I wanted to provide an overview of the First Tee, to just provide some background, our mission, our purpose, what we're about. And then secondly is taking the game to kids. So golf is not real accessible, and so some of the strategies and tactics that the First Tee employs to take the game of golf to where kids are. And then third, developing coaches to deliver the program. So obviously this group is very focused on developing coaches and practices, and so I'll share a little more about how the First Tee goes about that. And then last but not least is some systems we've put in place around assessment and feedback to determine how we're doing and get better and improve, which obviously all of us are about, by participating on groups like this to learn more about coaching and how we all can get better at impacting young people. So the First Tee just celebrated 20 years last year. We would not be around if it was not for the foresight, the founding, and the guidance and input from the 5 partners we have here. Augusta National Golf Club with the Masters Tournament, the LPGA, Ladies Professional Golf Association, the Professional Golf Association of America, the PGA Tour, and then the United States Golf Association. So each of these partners have been around a long time in the game of golf, and in 1997 they came together to found and launch the First Tee. So the mission of the First Tee is to impact the lives of young people by providing educational programs that build character, instill life-enhancing values, and promote healthy choices through the game of golf. This is actually the third mission statement, iteration of the mission statement for the First Tee. When the First Tee was first founded, it was about providing affordable and accessible golf to all young people. And that is still very true and inherent in our mission today and what our chapters carry out. But over time, we've evolved to develop additional educational offerings, real focus on character development with our 9 core values and a life skills program. And then the next iteration came at the start of this decade with Annika Sorenstam, who is a Hall of Fame member and very focused on health and wellness. And so with her involvement and her foundation, we developed a health and wellness portion of our program and curriculum. So that's really the evolution of the First T over the last 20 years. I mentioned our 9 core values. These are the core values, and these apply across any of our delivery channels, which I'll get into. So the First T has many locations that we're involved, but regardless of the location, these 9 core values are the cornerstone and really inherent in all of our lessons. And so for each one of these core values, we have observable, tangible behaviors that young people can demonstrate. And over time, we expect them to then internalize these and be able to exhibit these on their own without the prompting of coaches. So I mentioned I'm at the First T headquarters in St. Augustine, Florida, and our headquarters really has 9 roles that we serve. So one is programs, curriculum, and research. So we design, develop, involve a lot of great minds to develop our programs, our curriculum, and then have independent parties conduct research from time to time. We are big on providing branding and promotion for our network of chapters, set operational standards, and then one of the unique things that we do is at the headquarters we provide about a dozen national participant events, and so these range anywhere from a Life Skills and Leadership Academy. We'll be at Michigan State University this summer for that event. We're involved with the Pure Insurance Championship at Pebble Beach, and so 81 participants are selected through a competitive process to compete in a PGA Tour Champions event at Pebble Beach alongside some of their heroes. So it's pretty awesome, pretty cool that we can provide for our teenage participants that stay involved some great national opportunities for them to participate in, travel across the country. So the First T Network is made up of, we have 150 chapters around the country. They're each their own independent 501c3 organizations. They operate around 1,200 golf courses around the country. So that's the core of our program. We're also have a program we're involved in over 10,000 elementary schools. And then we also have partnerships or relationships with about 1,500 boys and girls clubs and YMCAs. And so where we have chapters, our goal is to have the First T opportunity present in the elementary physical education space, in the after-school space at a Boys and Girls Club or Y, and then the golf courses in that community. So at the end of the day, a young person can't help but trip across golf and the First Tee at some point as they develop and grow up in that community, whether it be through their physical educator in PE at their elementary school, and their after-school programs they go to at the Y or Boys and Girls Club, and then eventually on weekends and summers getting to a golf facility to fully partake in the game of golf and the First Tee offerings. So I want to provide a little context to what is the state of youth golf. So fortunately, over the last decade, or since 2010, youth golf has been on a steady incline, going from 2.5 million to 2.9 million over that period of time. And this is 6 to 17-year-olds, which the National Golf Foundation tracks participation in the game of golf. And then we also have some data from Project Play at the Aspen Institute, and really great to see that golf is now being reported and tracked on youth golf. And you'll notice here this is really 6 to 12-year-olds. And so over the last, since 2008, an increase of 200,000 young people additional playing the game of golf, which is great to see. So while trending upwards, we still have some work to do and can continue to grow the sport. The other interesting thing over a period of time of 20 years is really the increase in diversity of participation in youth golf, which was really an aim of the First Tee when it was founded. So in 1995, only 17% of youth playing golf were female, and that's doubled today. 20 years later, 33% are now female. Still, obviously, some work to do, but good progress. And then in 1995, diverse participants non-Caucasian was only 6%, and today is 27, or as of 2015, 27%. So some great progress again, but still a ways to go. So what are the odds of playing the game of golf? Well, if you have a parent in your household, the odds of you playing or taking up the game is 1 in 4. So pretty good odds if you have a parent in the house that plays golf, pretty good odds that you'll end up playing. However, if you don't have a relative, a parent in the household that plays golf, your odds go to 1 in 250. So you're saying there's a chance, but that's not a really good chance. And at the first tee, we really want to make those odds come down that you get closer to. If you don't have a parent in your household, we increase the likelihood of you taking up the game. So how are we doing that? Well, I mentioned the first tee is in physical education elementary schools. So I want to share a little bit about some of the outcomes of what has happened as a result of golf being in the PE space. And you'll notice there, you can ask yourself, well, how is golf done in PE? Well, fortunately, there's some very creative equipment makers, and you'll see there oversized plastic equipment, a rubber mat with a tee on it, and then a tennis ball. And so thanks to this type of equipment, we're able to take the game of golf to where young people are, whether it be in gyms or blacktops or empty fields, green grass space, to be able to take the game of golf, make it affordable and safe for those opportunities to be introduced. So again, this is some research that the National Golf Foundation has conducted, and when kids are asked about their perception of the game of golf, when they've had no exposure to the game, this is how the game of golf fares. Not very fun, not very popular, don't really want to participate. The only thing golf has going for it is it is considered very difficult. So again, these are kids that have had no exposure to the game of golf. So obviously the other sports have quite a leg up when it comes to the game of golf. So what happens when a kid gets exposed, just a 1 or 2 time exposure going to a golf course facility? So this could be a grandparent or a friend. They go to the driving range, they go out and experience golf once or twice on green grass. You can see the perception changes quite greatly. In fact, the fun factor goes way up above some of the other sports. Want to participate goes way up. So those are very encouraging data for us. But I think what's more interesting is what happens when a kid has an off-course hands-on experience. So being introduced to the game of golf in PE, for instance, with that colorful, oversized plastic equipment and a tennis ball, well, you can see their perceptions change quite a bit as well. It's considered fun, want to participate. Some of those key factors go up. So when you compare the on-course to the off-course experience, there's not a lot of difference overall in some of these factors. And so, we're very encouraged by, as we can continue to introduce the game of golf in PE and non-traditional settings, that we can have an effect on changing the perception of the game of golf to make it more likely that a young person would want to pursue. So, pardon the pun, but the first tee is attempting to put golf on par with other sports. So now I want to go into and share a little bit about our coach approach. And so we have a fairly extensive coach training program. In the school space, we have a 4-hour in-person training. We conduct about 50 to 60 of those a year to train physical educators to introduce golf into the PE space. We also train about 600 to 700 coaches a year through our First Tee Coach program, and those are the coaches that are active at the green grass golf facilities teaching the game and our core values. And so over time we've learned that just by handing a coach a curriculum or a lesson plan doesn't necessarily translate into a great learning experience. And so over the last decade, we've developed and been delivering coach trainings. And a typical coach training to become a coach in the first tee is a process of an online course to then a 3-day in-person course, training course, and then to become a full-fledged certified the first tee coach is about a 2.5-year process. And so a first tee coach would have attended 3 different in-person trainings over the course of 2.5 years. And so I'll just briefly touch on, what the core curriculum is or what we're trying to achieve with training coaches. So the bottom 2 building blocks there are really focused on how a coach creates a positive learning environment. And then as the coach progresses through the training, we focus on building relationships. And so we feel those are the two key outcomes that a coach would need to develop in order to be an effective coach at the first tee. So often we start with, how did you learn, or how would you teach someone to ride this? And so I'd be curious, take a pause here, and so who wants to share, either how did you learn to bike, what were some things you remember, or if you've recently taught your child or grandchild, how did you go about teaching someone to ride a bike?
And I'm going to go ahead and if folks want to, they can unmute themselves. You can do that via, I think it's *6 will unmute you if you want to chip in or if you want to chime in. People are very shy about doing this, Ryan, just so you know.
I understand.
Yeah. In fact,
or maybe no one has ridden a bike.
Well, I'll kick this off in that I taught my daughter to ride a bike with training wheels, and then eventually took those off and just sent her down the sidewalk. And with a little bit of guidance, my son, we took a very different approach in teaching him how to ride because I learned something new in between the 2 of them. But I didn't hire anybody to teach him how to do it, and I gave him as much instruction as I could, but it was a lot of trial and error.
You bet. No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Sam. So a couple of things I noted there is one, the first go around was training wheels. So there was the environment was made safe through the use of training wheels and creating some success early on, perhaps. And then 2, you mentioned the words little guidance, and so I think those are 2 interesting concepts when it comes to coaching. I could argue that golf is maybe perhaps the most over-coached sport, but I'm sure there's many others could make that argument as well.
So Ryan, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is John Kessel at volleyball.
Hey, John.
We saw a pretty interesting study out of Germany that showed that training wheels slowed the learning process down by like 65%. And it seems that the bike guys, the same people that are probably creating your huge plastic drivers for PE in first grade or whatever, they now seem to go a lot more towards just a balance bike with no training wheels, because that's the key thing. And from that point, and that's just part of a progression concept that we worry about here at volleyball, but have you used with your coaches the backwards bike video to show them how specificity really matters in golf? I mean, I tend to admire Bubba Watson and what he's been able to do over his years, partly because he's a lefty like me. But have you used the backwards bike video at all?
We have, actually. That is a fascinating video to watch, and so yes, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's very fascinating. I'd love to learn more about what you're referencing with the Germany study. I think what's most probably important, I haven't heard anybody talk about how someone would verbally spend 5 to 10 minutes trying to explain how to ride a bike, right? It's trial and error, get on it and do it. And so that's really one of the key cornerstones that we train coaches, is that kids really don't care what you know. They want the experience, they want to get their hands on, and they want to get going. And so we have this concept called being activity-based. And so we spend quite a bit of time, getting coaches setting up the environment for kids to do versus telling them what to do. So modeling with quickly getting into the activity or the game or the particular skill development. And so we find, especially in golf, but maybe true in other sports, that coaches like to talk a lot and like to spend time sharing their knowledge. But at the end of the day, kids really want to get on with it, and experience is the best teacher. So, how as a coach can you design activities and get young people involved more quickly in a lesson or an activity versus spewing, everything out, verbally, throwing up on them essentially. So we spent some time on that. Go ahead.
Well, if I get a chance, I'll send you a drawing that I did probably 20 years ago of a piece or a big circle that ultimately is a face, and the person's face has eyes that are bigger than any little plush doll or anything like that, just humongous eyes, a set of ears that when I say, who is this, people say, oh, that's Dumbo, because the ears are so big. And no, so humongous ears, humongous eyes, and then a dot for a mouth. And that's my drawing of the ideal coach.
I would love to see that. If you could share that, that would be awesome.
I'll get back to work. I use the bicycle idea for many years, and it's very valuable. So
great. Thank you for sharing.
Guys.
Excellent. So this doing versus telling concept we spend 3 days really with, and then fun and seamless. And so the seamless component for us is that while young people are doing these activities and games, approach to learning is that we're also infusing the core value behaviors or life skill strategies into the activities. So if it's about being courteous, then perhaps the coach would design that after each interplay, each exchange of switching games, there would be a smile, shaking hands, a nice word, before then switching from maybe a player to a caddy role in the particular game. And so, the character education component isn't set outside of the game of golf, or it isn't something done in addition to. It's something done while the games and activities are taking place. And so a typical coach training over the course of 3 days follows the format that the trainers model the first day, and they deliver lessons to the coaches, treating them as though they're participants in the program. So they're modeling that day one. Day two, the coaches are coaching each other, delivering lesson plans to each other with observation from the trainer and feedback at the end of the day. And then day three, the coaches are actually delivering to young people with the trainers observing and again providing feedback. So each coach training follows really that format and that level, and then obviously when the coaches return back to their chapters, their program directors provide some supervision, oversight, and continue their development before heading to the next training. So that's really the cornerstone of what we start with our coaches. I think probably many of you have seen this, and obviously this type of format that we have on this webinar doesn't lead to much retention. Perhaps 2 weeks later from now, if you're lucky, maybe you'll remember 50% of what you see and hear here. But at in-person coach trainings, we really try to spend as much time in that active upper level of simulating the real experience and doing the real thing. And so ultimately with the outcome of hoping that, what they learn will stick and take with them when they return back to their golf facilities. So I'll touch on the building blocks that we work to develop within our coaches. Being mastery driven. So having an intention, and then how do you help direct attention to that intention? We all know the butterfly effect, or when other distractions come into play, and so great coaches have a clear intention for the lesson, and then have the ability to continue to work the attention of the young people back to that intention. And then great coaches know how to balance process and outcome. So depending on where the development is, helping young people understand the process that gets them to the ultimate desired outcome. And so, again, training coaches on these concepts and giving them practice and tangible tactics and strategies to be able to implement is a key focus around being mastery-driven. One, starting with a lesson plan that clearly outlines the intention, and so that not only the lead coach, but then those coaches assisting the class know what the key intentions are for that particular class they're hosting. And then empowering youth is the next level, really about being relationship-driven. And so we break developing relationships with young people into a three-step process. One starts with empathy, so understanding where the young person is, what their interests are, what their challenges are, and really just being empathetic as a coach. After a period of time, then developing high positive expectations. So knowing where the young person is, knowing where they want to get to, and holding them to some high standards. And then last but not least is then being an advocate for them, or advocacy. So willing to go to bat for them and help connect them to other resources that based on where they want to go, what they want to develop for their future life. And so we really say those things are important to come in that order. If you just have high positive expectations without really knowing, understanding, having that empathy for a while, that could have the adverse effect of what you're desiring, your intended outcome. And then, really being youth-centered, that at the end of the day, the young person, it's really a perspective that they come with everything they need, and it's really the job of the coach to unpack that and help them discover for themselves. And, really at the end of the day, we want young people to be their own best coaches, and so over time, as opposed to just giving them the answers, how do you, the Socratic method of really asking great questions and pulling that information out of them and helping them discover for themselves, so that over the long haul, they'll be able to be their own best coach. And then last but not least is really continuous learning. And so for those of you that may play golf, you may have the experience of going into the 19th hole, and what do most golfers typically focus on? Well, it's typically the shot, the errant shot, the bad shot, the shank, and can typically be a very negative conversation. And so with our coaches, we really want to focus on good, better, how, or starting with what are the strengths, what happened that went well, and how would you replicate that again if you wanted to do that. And then better, identifying what is the one thing that they can improve upon, and then going about how to go about improving that for the next time. We typically focus on a ratio of 3 to 1. 3 goods have to be shared, or 3 strengths, 3 positives before identifying the one better. And then obviously coachable moments we're all focused on. And one of the interesting things that we've seen with a lot of our really good coaches is that it's not only necessarily a coachable moment for that particular kid, but sharing that coachable moment with the rest of the class. And so catching kids doing things well, or catching them doing it right, and then sharing that with the rest of the class, so that the learning is broader than just for that one particular student or athlete. So this concept of continuous learning has really broadened beyond just what coaches working with youth. As an organization, we've really embraced this continuous learning culture. And so we have a team of observers that go out to our chapters and spend a day and a half observing programs being delivered, coaches coaching, looking at the design of programs, reviewing lesson plans, looking really at the scope and sequence across a session. And so this team really spends time, asking some questions, calling out some data, but really observing coaches and providing feedback. And really at the end of the day, this red bubble here of internal assessment, we spend pretty good amount of resources and time with developing those folks to be able to do that, to be able to, one, we want to be able to provide feedback, consult, and coach up our chapters so they can continue to improve and get better. But it's also a tool for us as well at the headquarters to know how we're doing with developing coaches. And over time, this has led to us making some adaptations and changes in the way we train coaches when we realize something's not working or something's not really translating, to make some adaptations, whether it be in the curriculum or in the delivery of training our coaches. And then last but not least, we've been fortunate enough to then move into the blue bubble and have some independent research. We've been fortunate to have Dr. Maureen Weiss conduct a 4-year longitudinal study with following some teenagers over a 4-year period, and have some great learnings of one, the fidelity of delivery of the program, but also what the young people are actually transitioning and transferring these skills to other contexts such as school, home, or other sports they're playing. And so I'd be happy to share, if those that are interested can share more about that. But also, most recently, we've conducted a follow-up study with teen and alums around how they view golf, on their community service, how these skills are transferring to help them be better students, and ultimately be better prepared for life. And I think what's really encouraging is that the community service piece about developing better citizens. So 91% of the alumni were engaged in community service while they're in the first tee, but after they left, 72% are still engaged in community service, whether it be volunteering at a first tee chapter or volunteering in the community to other things, or volunteering on the community or on the college campus. When we've probed deeper on this, one of the reasons why the alumni cite this is that our coaches, by and large, are a volunteer workforce. They're parents, they're retirees who just love the game of golf, and so these participants seeing volunteerism being modeled right in front of them has led to them wanting to be volunteers when they grow up, or as one alum said, it's just what you do. It's part of being a productive citizen in your community as you volunteer and give back. Also, lifelong golfers. So 90% of the alumni consider themselves lifelong golfers and credit the first tee for helping improve their golf skills. And so, some participants in the first tee, that's all their involvement to the extent of golf, while others do seek outside of the first tee private instruction. And so it's encouraging that the alumni still credit the first tee, playing a big part in improving their golf development and their golf skills, which are leading to them being lifelong golfers. And then last but not least is better students is, some of these life skills that they learn through the game of golf, which could be considered sports psychology for kids or mental skills, are transferring and helping them be better students in the classroom. And that's very intentional. Our coaches, as part of their training, are at the conclusion of every lesson is what we call a bridge to life. So planting the seed and asking the students, how would you take this skill and apply it at school? How would you apply it at home? And how would you apply it in other sports or activities that they pursue? So all in all, I'll wrap up there, and I know want to provide plenty of time for questions and discussion, but hopefully that's helpful in providing some context and overview of who the First Tee is and what we're doing, how we're going about developing coaches to deliver and implement the program, and then some of the research findings, early indicators only in our short 20-year history of how the teens and alumni are faring when they exit the program.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Ryan. So a couple of things here for folks. If you want to ask a question, you either type it in the chat box or the little chat bubble there that comes up, and I will fire off Ryan, and Ryan will see the question as well. I also, if you want to, we got a small group on the call, so if you just want to unmute yourself using, I think *6 will unmute yourself. If you want to ask Ryan a question or make a comment, we'll just sort of handle it with the usual two people talking over each other and figuring out who gets to ask first. Ryan, I want to say I've learned a lot about First Tee because our membership director, our membership director at fencing reached out to you, and we got on a call because the Columbus school system is using First Tee in their PE program, and that's where I first came across your 9 core values and integrating that, which I think is just, I know it makes the people in Columbus, they really like that part of it because the life lessons and values are something that I think, everybody can agree on, and that it adds a lot of value to it, and that they're real positive about that. And as we move forward in talking with them, that was something they were really emphasizing, that that's what they wanted. So that's one of my tasks, is to integrate that with fencing and try to figure out how to meld the two. So, but I'm really impressed by that part of it.
Oh, well, thank you, Sam. I've enjoyed our engagement around that conversation, and I think, by embedding core values, obviously for principals, school-wide character education is a big to do on their list, and so when the physical educator can play a role in supporting their agenda of school-wide character education, it just makes it more receptive for the principal to want to put the program in. Obviously, golf being a lifelong sport is of interest to PE teachers, but the added bonus is, the very intentional integration of character education into the PE classroom.
Now, were those core values involved in the start, or when were those integrated into the curriculum?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was, the first 3-4 years of the First Tee was really focused on that affordable, accessible golf for young people, and so that phase of business focused on gaining access to golf facilities for kids, but also building youth facilities. And it was one of those grassroots things that as these 9-hole courses were being developed for youth, the adults involved started to label the holes, honesty, respect, courtesy. And so we started to notice this kind of bubbling up as these golf courses, youth golf courses, are being developed, that they're labeling the holes after core values. And so we just kind of built off that and said, well, let's make that intentional with our curriculum then. So it was really about probably 2002, 2003 that we really started to harness that and make that intentional and really define what those core values mean. And then we set forth and integrating that into anything we did curriculum-wise with youth.
That's neat how it sort of bubbled from the ground up. Someone got innovative and put that in. You give somebody something, and a lot of times they can innovate and make it better. And it's always good when you incorporate that into a bigger program. All right. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. I don't hear anybody on the line trying to get in. So
hey, Ryan, Ted.
Go ahead.
Hey, Ted.
Great job. I had a quick question. Love that 1 in 4 versus the 1 in 250 stat that you showed of who, if your parents play this, is how you'd get in versus if they don't. AKA, I'm going to steal it. Where does that come from?
That comes from the National Golf Foundation. So in 2017, they started doing, my understanding is the first junior golf research they've really focused on in their history. And so that came from their initial research. And I know they were concluding another phase of that was end of last year into this year. And so I don't think it's published yet, but it's definitely available. Joe Budditz is willing to share that info with you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, Ryan, that stat got me thinking about, I wonder what it is for other sports. I mean, you know, there are some sports that are very high profile that I'm sure those numbers would be much smaller and stuff. You know, I'm thinking about my sport of fencing that's a very small sport where we have just under 40,000 members. Now we know there's some people out there who aren't members, who are members of clubs and stuff, but still it's a pretty small number. And I'm curious what that number is for our sport and perhaps for, you know, a handful of other sports out there as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sam. I actually went searching. I spent a good evening trying to try to put that into context for golf, what other sports were, and I could not find anything. I did find some other disturbing stats that you have 1 in 113 odds of dying in a car wreck. So that means you have a better chance of dying in a car wreck than a kid does playing golf if their parents don't. So that was not very encouraging.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to work that one into a presentation where it wouldn't be sort of kind of depressing and on both levels, on both sides of that. So, yeah. All right. Last call for questions from anybody on the line.
You know,
all right. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for sharing the first tee program. And
Sam, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope folks are able to take some things away from this. I think the integration of lessons and also how you've gotten involved in PE. I know for some sports that are involved in this little group, you know, they're already involved. I mean, you know, volleyball is a very common PE structure, although I'm sure John would like it to be, you know, probably highlighted even more. But I think that, you know, that's an avenue that we're seeking at fencing, is to try to get that exposure to, you know, middle school kids. And kind of you guys are a role model for that, and I'm copying as much as I possibly can from you guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Happy to share.
All right. Cool. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and put into this and thank Ryan and thank everybody for joining us, and join us again for the next call, which will be in April with Kathy Sellers. And I will send out emails, and we'll also put that on the USCCE website as well to give folks the date, time. The call-in information is always the same for these calls, so that's an easy one to get back in track. So, Ryan, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Everybody have a great day.